Welcome everybody. It's time to draw and paint again in watercolor. Thanks for coming by. It's Chris Petri. So we're getting started here on this video. You're going to kind of see the whole process that we're going to go through step by step, how to get a beautiful shore scene like this done. We're doing an estuary scene. We're going to put in a sailboat here. We have a photograph here that was sent in by one of our students here on YouTube, one of our fellow artists. And it's a beautiful estuary with beautiful water, sandbars. We have some distant hills and sand and some beautiful sky here. Gorgeous sunny day. So we're going to show you how we're going to take this photograph, put it into our minds, and then practice and use all of our techniques to get this painting from this photograph. And it's really, we just added a few different things in here to maybe just make it a little more interesting for our own personal taste. You don't have to do everything the way I do it here. You can paint this one exactly the way you see the photograph, and that's fine. I just did a little bit of a different look to it, but essentially I did use this for my subject matter, and it's a great photograph to work from. Gives us all the basic ingredients for a beautiful coastal scene. So we're going to get started in just a second. Again, I cover everything from your paints, your brushes, what water you're going to use, how much water, how you're going to use your brush techniques, how you're going to get your sky washes, your beautiful sky washes in, what kind of techniques you're going to use to get in all of your beautiful details here in the foreground with your sandbar and the different washes that you need to do that, and the brush techniques that are going to help you to kind of really get this detailed look to your painting. And a nice, beautiful light and dark kind of feel, so you have lots of contrast in your painting here. Okay, we'll be right back. All right, welcome everybody. Let's get started. You just saw the finished painting, of course, so we're just going to move right along here. The first thing I always do is, I'll set up my palette, my paper. I have a wonderful actually photograph Richard sent me, for one of our subscribers, one of our artist friends here, fellow students, sent me a really cool photograph of a beautiful estuary, waterway, some birds, beautiful sky. We're going to kind of paint this our own way. I'm going to usually as an artist, you'll always look at maybe photographs, or even if you're out in plein air painting outdoors or working from books. Usually what you'll do is you'll look at a painting, and then in your mind you're going to try to think of how do you most likely want to paint it. Like in your mind, envision the finished painting of how your style is. So you might like to paint kind of lighter washes, so maybe you're going to go a little lighter. I might go a little lighter here too myself. Or if you like to paint with a little more vibrant color or darker washes, maybe those middle tone, middle key type paintings, you can paint this darker. You can use different kind of brushes to get different effects. You can add some clouds in the sky if you want. But if you're trying to get a real exact likeness of this photograph, well, that's one way of doing it. So you could set up your goal and say, I've got this great photograph. I'm going to try to paint it exactly the way I see it for the most part, with this, caveat that you do have certain limitations. You have certain brushes you have and paints and things like that, and maybe you're not going to be able to get every variation of color, or maybe, but the main thing I think is you're the artist. Kind of create from photographs or even from books or from your internet searches, whatever you're going to do when you're searching out photographs that you might like to paint, is just try to look at the photograph and then try to do what you feel is comfortable with your style of painting, how you like to put on the water and the paints and so forth, and the techniques you like to use. That's a really key thing to remember on something like this. And, you can use references too. You might say, I'm going to look up one of my favorite artists that I like, my favorite watercolor artists. I'm going to look up some of their photographs online and see if I can kind of fit their style of watercolor painting with this type of photograph. Sometimes you might like to go with a certain artist that might do landscapes a lot, and you like the way their landscapes look. And then another artist you might like, they might do flower paintings really beautiful, and you like the way they do their flower paintings. So you can kind of maybe find yourself some different artists that you like and find out how they do their different different styles and techniques that they use. And then they're also their subject matter that they like to paint. So, if you have someone that's a great watercolor artist that loves to do landscapes or city scenes, well, that might be the kind of person you want to role model yourself after when you're doing those paintings. And then if someone else does flowers a lot better, you might do their paintings and try to kind of learn what they're doing. And then in the end result, you'll kind of have a blending of all different people that artists that you followed and looked at their artwork, and you get like your own technique going from that, or your own look, your own style. So, but that takes years. You have to research all these different things and have fun with it as you go. Don't worry about it. Don't get overwhelmed. Just, kind of think things through. I always hear great artists say, step back and think about things before you start your painting and your drawing. And that's a really true statement and a really good way to think about your artwork and your painting and your drawings and your paintings as you go, is you step back a little bit and think about it and say, oh, wow, this is going to be like a seascape, coastal scene. And then I might say, I've looked at a lot of artist paintings over the years. Who really does the best coastal type scenes? And then you might say, that's someone I'm going to maybe try to use some of their techniques and how they do their paintings. And you might look up a few pictures online, or if you have a book or a couple of YouTube videos of them painting, then you do it that way. Or if you just want to be a one-stop shop and do everything here on my channel and just watch my videos, that's fine too. You can look and see how I do all my different paintings. And I kind of borrow from all different artists to do different paintings. So that's kind of how I do it. So I'm kind of explaining to you how I do it in my own personal experience in watercolor. So let's get started here. I just want to make sure, first off, I'd like to make certain that I'm going to be able to put a mat over this when I'm done, so I can put it in a frame if I would like to, if it comes out really good. And so I can see, yes, my mat here is plenty, my paper, I should say, is plenty large enough that if I take my mat and put it on top, I have some room to move around my mat, and then I can trim my paper and then tape my watercolor painting onto the back of the back of this mat, and then you can put it in a frame. So that's the first thing I do. And I always mention, I try to mention anyway, this is Studio Watercolor by Fabriano. This is what the cover looks like. If you look it up online, they make really beautiful watercolor pads of paper, 11 by 14 pads. I just trimmed that in half. An 11 by 14 sheet. I cut that in half. Studio Watercolor, pretty reasonable for pricing. Good pricing actually for the quality of paper. The quality of paper is really great. You get 50 sheets. So you can look this up online. All the art stores have it. Amazon has it. So that's my paper, and then my paints are the Prang Oval 16. This is more of like a beginner style painting and a video, because I'm going to use my more simple Prang Oval 16 watercolor set, semi-moist watercolor paints. And then I'll just go around here, just to go around my tape. And I could take my mat one more time and just kind of, maybe I set it down here and say, all right, this is about the width of it, of the window. And then if I move this about center, so that's about, okay, so I just put a couple marks. So I kind of know that's about where the window is. So yeah, I'm looking pretty good. If I stay within these areas, I'm fine. And I can even paint larger and then just put the mat over top and trim the paper. Now here, I'll use a dark, first I'll do a light pencil line so I can work this out. And then I'll use a darker pencil line. So a lighter pencil line first to get my, what I would call my preliminary drawing. So I say, all right, what does this look like here? This is about 1/3 of the way up is my horizon line for my distant hills and where the coastal waterway is coming in. So I take my ruler here and I say, well, what's 1/3? I can always use centimeters and say, well, 15, perfect, 5, 5, and 5. So I can come over here and say, all right, 15 centimeters. So thirds will be 5 centimeters, 10 centimeters, and 15 is the bottom of the page. So now I know I can just drop my ruler along the first third, 5 centimeters up from the bottom, and I go across like that. Now I might say to myself, maybe I'd like to go a little bit higher than that. Not a problem if you just erase a tiny bit. That's fine. You'll never see that when you're painting. I'm going to go a little bit higher than that. Just a touch, maybe higher than that, and that's better. That's better. A little bit higher up. Just a touch above 1/3 of the paper. So like 5.5 centimeters. Let's take a look and see if I'm correct. 6 centimeters. So 6 centimeters up from the bottom. That's our distant horizon line here. And then we're going to start to get some, again, very, very super light sketching. This is just a regular office pencil. Some super light sketch lines so that we get our embankment over here. That's going to be a dark. So I can even take my pencil and make a little bit of shading. And I'll make this even darker. I'm just getting a start here first. And then there's a few other bits of sand. And then there's water over here. There's some more. And then we have a nice swoop this way and then over this way, and then it goes like that. So, and then we have another bit of here. And then over here we have some, so I'm just carefully looking at the photograph, trying to get some shapes going of the coastal sandbars here and earth where it meets the water, the estuary here. And that looks really good. And then the distant mountains. And that's pretty good. And then the sky. Maybe I will put a couple clouds in the sky. Although maybe we'll stick with a clear sky just like this, a nice clear blue sky for the day. I won't put any clouds in. I'm going to try to keep it pretty close to what we're looking at here in the photograph. All right, so that's good. I have my preliminary sketch done with my light pencil lines. Then I'll do a little darker pencil line so that we can kind of see a little better the lines. You can see a little better. I'm just going to sharpen my pencil a little bit here. There we go. And then now I'll do the same thing. I'll probably use my ruler and get that line. Again, it's already in, so it's easy to do. I just put my ruler right on the line. And there we go. You can kind of see that a little better. That's my 6 centimeter up from the bottom horizon line, where that distant range is of the earth along the coastal area here, the estuary. And then we're going to have that darker bit of embankment, and essentially you have sunlight coming from the back of the painting over here. It's sort of over here, the sunlight. So let's make our light insignia. So the light's sort of coming this way, like that. And that's how you get this dark shadow along this embankment. So I'm just going to carefully take my darker pencil. It's a 2B pencil, which is softer. It puts out a darker line. And then we do that. And then we're just going to know that when we paint this, it's going to be a darker wash. So we don't have to go too crazy with too many details, just enough that we have that kind of worked out, where that dark shadow is, where the embankment is. And then we just go across here, and I'll just get the other sandbars over here. And then they kind of go in and like that. And then we have a little bit of sandbar over here. And then over here we have a nice bit of hill and some more sand. And this comes along here and just kind of nicely curves out of the picture, and then you have your water. This is the water coming in here like this. So I hope that looks pretty good. You can sometimes, when you're painting, you don't always have to paint every single perfect line. When you paint, you can start to have a little fun and add some extra shapes in there if you want. But if you stick with your game plan of getting the pencil drawing done first, do the preliminary sketch first, which means just get those really light lines in first. This way you kind of know where everything's going to be. And then if you have to make a little bit of changes, no problem. You take a little bit of an eraser and you just erase a little bit. You know, you erase a few lines with your light pencil sketch. And once you get your light pencil sketch in, then you go over with a darker line, with a darker, either you're pressing harder with your pencil when you go over the second time doing your contour drawing, or you use a little bit of a darker, softer lead. A 2B works really good. It's got a nice, darker look to it. And that's all really you have to do. And then it's really, everything now is going to be painting from this point forward. So let's have a lot of fun getting started with our painting just in a second or two. I just want to take a quick break before we get started. I'm just going to spritz my paints with a little water, add some water to my water glass here, and we should be ready to start our painting. So let's do that. Let's take a quick break. We'll come right back in a second, and we'll start our painting. Be right back. Okay, we are all set. We're getting back here in business. We're getting started again. I'm going to put some water in this water glass here. And we have our brushes and our paints ready to go. So I always mention on my YouTube beginners, we're doing beginners series here pretty much. Yeah, this can be intermediate, even expert level. If you've been painting a long time in watercolor, you can certainly paint along with me here. All you really have to do is pick up a palette like this if you want to kind of get the most effect from doing these type of paintings when we're working with this palette. You'll kind of get the handle of having a really fun palette to use, the Prang Oval 16. It's semi-moist watercolor paint. All it means is when you take a spritzer bottle and you spritz some water on this, like this, after about a minute or two, your paints are ready to go. They're soft, they're moist, you can paint. And when you're done, you can just leave it like this and not even worry about it and come back the next time, a day from now, 2 days from now, hours from now, or even weeks or months from now, and you do the same thing. You spritz it a few times and it's ready to paint. It's a lot different. It's a lot easier to work with this type of palette, especially if you're just beginning in watercolor. You don't want a lot of hassles with worrying about squeezing out paint and all that kind of a thing. To me, and when I first started watercolor, that's one thing I wish I had. I wish I had started with maybe a more simple set like this, because in the beginning it was more of a hassle trying to squeeze out two paints, and they would dry, and you know, it was hard to get them to soften up nice. And so with this type of paint, you can really get great results right from the start, and it's not a big deal, you know. You can get started quickly. Your paints are going to be like no fuss, no muss. You just spritz them in, you're ready to paint, and you can get all the values, the darks, the lights, the whole enchilada. So that's why I always use this on my beginners series videos like this. But again, if you've been painting a while, years even, you can still buy a palette like this and work along with this doing the paintings. And I use, again, with beginner's style work right now, I'm using synthetic brushes, which don't have as much water. They don't hold as much water or carry as much water as regular sable brushes, which are more expensive watercolor brushes. They're great to use, and if you have a lot of experience with watercolors, or a decent amount of experience with watercolors, sable brushes are fun to use. They work great. They hold lots of water. You can, you know, move a lot of water and paint around on your watercolor paper quickly. But for, you know, kind of a beginning, for making a beginning in watercolor, just starting out, these are great. These are the Princeton Art and Brush Company brushes. You can get like a 6-pack of these things, like 6 different brushes for like $10. You can always tell by the handles look like wood grain. So this looks like, you know, that brown wood grain, really nice. And you get a couple of square, you know, flat brushes, square brushes with it. And then you get quite a few of the round brushes with it as well. And then I bought one extra Princeton Art and Brush Company brush. And you can find other brands too of synthetic brushes. But I'm just saying I use these because I've tried a lot of different synthetic brushes. And Princeton Art and Brush Company brushes are really good quality. They're excellent quality. They're very affordable. And that's why I use them. So I wouldn't suggest anything to you unless I tried it a lot first and know that it works well. And then I have a Simply Simmons brushes, which work really well. And this is a number 6 Simply Simmons round brush. You can always spot this one. It's got a pearl kind of look to it, that pearl sheen to the brush. So those are easy to pick up when you go online or when you do your shopping for your art supplies and tools. Okay, so first thing we'll do is let's do this alla prima. which means let's do this all at one time. We're not going to use the glazing technique at this on this painting. Let's get started right in and get some of our darks in first. So let's do that embankment first. So the first thing I'll do is mix up some colors, and let's do the brown, some blue, brown, blue, touch of black. Some more blue, touch of purple. So I want to get a kind of a mix, maybe some red even too. Good mix of darks. So then I get my brush, and then I just put a little bit of take a little bit of paint and water off the brush on the sponge here, and then I can start in, and we'll start doing the embankment over here. And of course, this is the darkest dark in the picture. Out of everything else, that's the darkest dark. So let's start with that. And that kind of starts to set the mood of the painting. You can kind of start to, work from your darkest dark into your middle tones, and then your lighter washes. So let's do that. Let's get these in here. I'm just going really easily here with the point of the brush and getting a good dark there. And then you can always mix it up a little bit. Maybe blot up one or two spots. I'm going to add a little bit of orange, straight orange right out of the palette. But for the most part, it is quite dark. So let's stick with that game plan of making this really dark. And you can kind of see how it's this dark here, this embankment along this coastal waterway here in Sandbar. It's wider over here, of course. It's wider here because it's closest to us. And then as it goes into the distance, it gets smaller and thinner, that line. So that's what I'm going to work here. I'm working that line thinner and thinner as it goes over here. And my technique is pretty simple. I just rest my hand on the paper like this, and then just take the brush and kind of just guide it along. And then if I have to slide down, I just slide my hand along the paper. And I'm working on a large board. So this board, if you can imagine, it goes down another quite a bit. So my board is this much wide below this painting. So as much as wide as this paper is up here, the board I'm working on is this wide, the same width, about 5 or 6 inches or 7 inches below me. So I have plenty of room to rest my hand down here on the board. So if you are working in, maybe you're using a sketchbook. Sketchbooks are a lot harder to work on when you're painting, because sometimes your hand's kind of like rolling off the sketchbook, and you have maybe a hard time. So that's why if you have a large board that you work on top of, and you tape your watercolor paper down to, or even a kitchen table, something like that, you'll have a lot easier of a time. So that's really a big help. I don't know how you are painting back in your place where you are, but that is a big help. If you can have a large working board, or if you're using a kitchen table or any kind of table, or some kind of board that might be in your lap if you're sitting in a chair, or something like that, or if you're on an easel, the easel board. So the easel the board on your easel should be also large too. So if you're working on a easel, you should be able to rest your hand all the way around your painting. Easily rest your hand on that, so you have a good stable place to rest your hand as you work around your painting. Okay, so we got this main dark in here going across. This is the embankment. It has a little bit of a it does that a little bit, I see here. So this might be where the embankment is larger, and it kind of slopes out more into the water on an angle. And these are steeper areas. So the embankment here along this coastal area here, you can kind of see that it kind of varies. So you have that little bit of area there. That's good. We've really got a really good dark there. Now let's start working in, let's work over the top maybe, and we'll get some of those brownish green gold colors. This ought to be fun. Let's see how we can do this. All right, brown, orange, green, green. We'll get some darker green up here. So I'll kind of try to make it move some paint around here on the palette over this way. A touch of blue. Touch of blue in there too. And I try to mix in that green too as well. That looks pretty good. Touch of this yellow, orange, a little bit of red too even. It's more of a gold color though. Okay, so I rinse off my brush now. I've mixed my paint for this top portion of this hill up here. Let's try it and see how it looks. And I'll just start painting across here, and I'll try to mix up my colors a little bit. So I'm doing a little bit of green, a little bit of this more golden color, some red. Again, I'm trying to, if you can see, I'm building in a little more color than we might see in the picture. Of course, let's get some blue down here. The sky is going to be these bluish colors, so let's make sure we get some of that blue in the washes. But let's keep them predominantly the golden green color. If you think you went too light or too dark, you can always take your brush, rinse off the paint, dry off your brush a little bit on the sponge, and then you can come across and just lift up a little bit of paint off the paper. And then go back in. Do the same thing again, dry off a little bit of the water, and you can lift up a little bit of paint. Like that. So that's fun. You can go in, actually have maybe gone in with a little bit of the wash is a little dark, but you have no worries. You know one of your techniques to lighten up a wash is to rinse your brush off, dry it off on your sponge or even a little bit on your tissue or paper towel, and go in right away and just lift it up. Just a damp brush will lift up paint real easily like this as you're working. But you have to do it fast. Obviously, you can't let it dry for like 20 minutes, and then it won't work. But yeah, as long as you do that, as long as you're able to, and you can also quickly dab with a tissue. If you see you've painted too dark, right away you can go in and just take a tissue and start lifting up. The only problem with that is if you start lifting up paint like this and you have paint on your tissue, you could by accident tap some of that paint onto the sky or this other area. So the safer ways to do it with the brush, but if you want to, another way you can do it is if you lift up some paint with your tissue, all you got to do is make sure you fold your tissue over so that it's a fresh, clean spot on your tissue, and then go down another spot, and then clean, and then wrap your tissue again. So you always want to make sure your tissue or your paper towel or even a rag, whatever you're going to use, as long as it's clean each time you go down and lift up a little bit of paint, you're going to be way safer. If you're doing something like this where you have white paper and then dark wash like this. If you're doing a sky wash, then you can just blot anywhere you want on a sky wash because it's kind of all the same. But if you have dark and light passages in your watercolor painting, you definitely want to be careful when you're using tissues lifting up paint. And a more accurate way to lift up paint is obviously if you're going in and you're painting something dark again and if you painted it maybe too dark, rinse off brush quick, tap off some of that water, dry off the brush even a little more, and then go in and press down the brush and lift up. And then you'll be able to lift up really accurately. I mean, there's nothing more accurate than doing it that way, lifting up your paint with a damp brush, clean, damp brush. Okay, so now we have this bit of a hill here. An embankment all completed. Looks good. I think we have it pretty close to the photograph. And then we're going to go over here. This is a little lighter, but the same colors essentially. So we'll go in. We'll start going over here. And actually this over here is a little bit darker. Let's do this one. This bit of a sandbar. This kind of is the same tonal value. It's the same tonal value as up here. So let's kind of get that in next. And then we're going to start to see some water over here. Over there. But this is a bit darker there. Like that. Okay, and then we're going to go lighter. This is a little bit lighter. Like that. And there's also a little bit of grass and weeds and things on this portion, this sandbar over here. So now what I'm doing here is, if you can see, I'm leaving a white line across here of dry paper. This is kind of like a technique where if you don't want to have this wash start to like flow down into this wash over here, which is a lighter wash, you can actually paint it first and let it dry a little bit like we're doing now. And then you can go in and do the wash and kind of meet them up there and match them up right now. But that's a good way to do it. And then we can go a little darker with this one here. So you can go in with a little bit of a darker wash quick, right over the top. Like that. And this one stays lighter. And then we can do a little bit of those, a little bit of weeds and grass, wisps of weeds and grass on over here on this sandbar. We can do that once everything dries a little bit further in the painting. But this so far is going really well. And I think I say we take a break right now. We've done quite a bit. We've gotten all of this horizon line here. We've gotten that dark sandbar in, the dark embankment here. And then we've got also completed the foreground here a little bit, the middle distance to the foreground basically, like that. Right here. So now I think we can take a break and then we'll start working over here with the darks on this side and some of these lighter tonal values here. This is quite light. Actually, this is the lightest of all the areas of the darker earth and embankment and these sandbars. This right here, you can see that little area. That's like the lightest part. So we'll keep watch on that when we come back next and do this right-hand side of the picture where we have some more sandbars and some mud and weeds and things like that. And we'll put some birds in too when we're working a little bit later. We're going to put in some birds along these this beautiful waterway here. And we'll put in the water, of course, in the sky. So let's take a quick break, let this set up and dry for about 10-15 minutes. You can use a blow dryer to speed up the process if you want. That's up to you. You're the artist. You can have some techniques and things on the side that'll help you go quicker if you want. So if you have a blow dryer, you just dry this off a little bit, like for 1 or 2 minutes, and then you'd be able to go back in and start painting again, and you'd be fine. So let's come back in a second or two, and we'll begin our right-hand side over here, the sandbars again in the marshy kind of areas and a little bit of that lighter sand color. And I think we might leave out those boats and things. I don't think I'll paint them in. They're kind of small. They look good, I guess, but I don't know. I'm just going to kind of feel like it's going to be better just to leave this more simple. I'm going to simplify it a little bit. And again, you're the artist. If you want to change a few things around in your painting as you go, please do that. Don't always feel like you have to do things exactly what you see in your photograph. We're actually going to add some things in here. Let's add a boat in here, right? this would look great with the boat. So we're going to add in a boat. Even though we don't see it here, obviously, we can just paint in a real simple sailboat, let's say, or a small fishing boat, or a rowboat, something like that, right? So no big deal. You can change things as you go. You just don't want to make any major changes. You know, you kind of want to stick to that main game plan when we started. But, you know, little minor things you can do to make your paintings more exciting, please do it. All right, we'll be right back. We're having fun here. Lots of exciting colors so far. Nice earth colors. We're going to get in those other washes here, and then a beautiful sky wash and a few details of boat. And we'll be all set, and a couple birds too, and we'll have a great looking painting, okay? So we'll come back in just a minute. All right, so we're getting back here. I just wanted to mention, if you weren't aware, I'm actually, I just created a brand new book. You can pick it up on Amazon. It's called Watercolor Methods for Success. What's great about this book is there's tons and tons of beautiful paintings inside that you can work from, just like we're doing now. We're working from a photograph, but the same holds true when you're working from an art book. And this is one of the things that I really am happy about with my book, is that I have a lot of paintings in there that you can work from, and a lot of diverse subject matter. So we work with flowers and still life and some figures, a lot of coastal scenes, water, lighthouses. We do architecture, houses, homes, city scenes, kind of like just a lot of different things. So just wonderful paintings along the shore here, some figures, lighthouses. I kind of explain exactly how I paint everything in a simple format, so I don't bog things down too much with too much detail. And so it kind of just gives you the straight, real quick information that you might need to kind of get the overall idea of what I'm doing with my paintings and my techniques, the same as what I do here. So this is basically a lot similar to my YouTube videos. I kind of keep things straightforward, cover the main techniques. You can always, I also throw in tidbits of information too, but the book has wonderful paintings, just chock full of great information, great paintings. I cover for people that want to step up and maybe do, we have a lot of great city scenes too here, and, beautiful fruit and vases and leaf forms and flowers. And then I cover all my techniques and practice techniques and what color paints I use, my palettes. All my palettes I cover here, my main palettes that I use, my professional palettes, and, swatches to practice up on, and different techniques and understanding tonal values. So the book is chock full of great information. I cover my brushes, my pencils, my papers. So it's kind of like just everything in one book for you. So if you want to pick up this book, you really can't go wrong. It'll cover all my main information that I kind of use on a consistent basis when I'm creating my YouTube videos, and my basic techniques and methods in watercolor. So I'm hoping you'll pick this up, and it's just a great book. It's brand new out, Amazon. You just type in Chris Petri watercolor book, and that's all you need to really type in. I'll also put a link down below in the video, so you can click on the link if you want to check it out over on Amazon. But let's keep working through this here, and we're going to start working over here on the right-hand side. We're going to do some more of that sand and kind of a little bit of marshy areas over here, sandbar, and let's keep going here. We're going to use the same colors. And actually here we're going to be going lighter, a little more blue. I'll add a little more blue in here. Brown. So we're going to use the same colors before, brown and orange. Brown and orange, a little bit of red. And then a little bit of blue too as well. And then some of this darker mix we mixed before. But definitely we've got to have some of that warm and cool, the blues in there too with the colors. And then we're just going to do this. We're going to start getting these. And now it needs to be a little warmer. You can kind of see that might look a little bit more bluish. So let's get that brown, warmer tonal value in there, and that warmer brown color. But you can kind of see we're working the paint over. You can take your brush and kind of work it over this way. Now let's we need some green in there too. I can kind of see there's some green in there. So that brown and green, olivey green. And this kind of goes across here like so. So this sandbar over here kind of goes all the way over here. And then we have an interesting kind of, this goes in like so. So we have some of those fine lines like this coming in. This over here too. And then this over here, like this. And again, I'm looking carefully at my photograph and I'm noticing that this is like a large triangular shape here. So it's kind of like a triangle, like this. So I want to make sure I capture that. And then I rinse off my brush and then I go in and get a lighter wash here. Like this. You can kind of see that's quite a bit lighter over here. Now let's do some splashing to get that sand effect, and the same over here. Just a couple splashes. Keep things looking like it fits in with the scene. A little bit of splashing is sand. So I go in and get some of the splashing, and even a little bit in the water is okay. And then even up here, there's some more land up here. So the water sort of, I don't really see much water up here on the top portion. But there is some over there, so I'll leave a little bit there. And then sometimes if you do some splashing and you say, oh, it looks a little bit too dark, my splashes, you grab a fresh tissue and just blot up a couple of your splashes and they become a little less obvious looking. And we're also going to put watercolor in here, so, or you know, the color of water, which is blue. And that's going to be reflected up, and the sky is going to reflect, you know, the water reflects the sky. So if you have a really nice blue sky, you're going to see the blue water here reflected up from the water. From whatever the sky color is, basically, you're going to have your water looking about the same. So you can kind of see we've gone through this painting pretty much just consistently looking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth at our subject matter. This gorgeous photograph by Rich, he sent that to us. And you'll see that I matched up the dark and lights of it. So the really, really dark embankment that runs across the whole picture, we started with that all the way across. That's our first darkest dark. Let's get that first dark in. Then we start going in with our middle tones, like our, darker middle tones, middle to dark. Over here and over here. Now we start getting into some lighter tones, tonal values over here, this light section over here, which is like sand. So you get that in. You can lighten that up a little bit by blotting. If you want to lighten that up a little bit, you can blot that, even do a little bit of that if you have to. Then I'll get a little bit more. We did see some little bits of, looks like a little bit of growth of maybe some weeds and some grass over here, like that. You can see those little bit of lines. So let's get some of those in there. We'll take those darks and kind of mix them over here. Maybe a little bit of green in there too. Kind of an olivey look. Dark olivey kind of feel. So, and we're going to get some, in a minute or two, we're going to get our square flat brush, and we're going to actually do a little bit of, weeds and things and grasses. And I just wanted to make this a little darker over here. Like that. That's a little darker there. Like that. And then again, a little bit of water, a little bit of the darker dark, green and brown. A little bit of that darker dark there. And I noticed this is a little more dark over here, like this. Now what I did here is I was coming back in with these darks because I noticed this line over here is, if you can imagine, this is level over here. This line over here, that top line over here, that's pretty much level. It's kind of level across the picture. Level. This line here is more on an angle like this. So that's why I went back in and said, let me get this angle a little better. You can always do that as you're working. You kind of get, all right, that's a little better than what it was before. It's a little more true to the picture. So I got that angle in there. And this one here we said was pretty much straight across, level like this. And the same thing up here. It's pretty much level, that line. And then we put in those little bits of grass and weeds there. And I think this is looking good right along here. Like that. You can even make those a little darker. Like that. And then a couple like that. That's looking pretty good. All right, so now our next best bet is we're going to work on the sky, and then as we work on our sky, we take that wash that we're doing on the sky and we'll put that down in the water. But the main thing is, don't worry about it. Take some breaks now, please, unless you don't need a break. But I'm not saying everyone needs breaks, but I need breaks every once in a while. I just want to take a quick break. I'll change out my water when I come back. We'll mix up some sky wash when we come back for up here. And then we should have it complete. And we'll also put in a boat. So, and a couple birds. So let's kind of think about that. I'm going to take a quick rest, 5-10 minutes, let myself relax. And then when I come back and I get ready to start again, then I'm going to let those creative juices start flowing. And I start going, okay, what's next? Okay, am I going to do the sky wash first and then put the boat in? Or am I going to do the boat last? Let me do the boat last, maybe, yeah, and the birds last. Let me do the sky wash first. So I start thinking about those things as I take a break and relax. Then my brain's a little more relaxed. And then when I come back to start painting again, I can start thinking about those other considerations that we have, because we did say we're going to add a boat into this scene. And we said also we're going to add some birds in, maybe closer here to the foreground so we can kind of see them a little better. They're kind of in the far distance in this photograph. You can hardly see them. They look like very tiny, small bits of lights, like some bright whites. But let's make them closer here. We'll make some birds over here closer. Maybe we'll do a couple birds in the sky too, flying. Some seagulls maybe. All right, and then other than that, we're really having a fantastic time here and just having fun. We'll take a break and we'll come right back. Okay, be right back in just a second. All right, here we go. So we're getting back. We took a break. Now we can kind of we're more relaxed. Our focus is a little better. What I'm going to ask myself next is, where am I going to put a sailboat? I want to put a small little sailboat, or maybe just even a fishing boat. Well, I thought maybe if I go about maybe 3/4 across the paper, like here, not quite half, maybe a little past the halfway point, maybe right there is going to look better. I don't really want to put it slap dap in the middle of my painting. I think a little bit past the halfway point is going to look the best spot. So let's do that. Let's make a small sailboat and fishing boat maybe. I'll do a fishing boat. Okay, like this. And then we'll put it over here like so. Anything will work. You can make a real simple fishing boat. Let's say my fishing boat I just created is a little bit on an angle. I've been practicing fishing boats and sailboats and ships and all kinds of stuff like this for a long time, for many years. So I can kind of render one pretty quickly and easily. If you're just starting out in watercolor, no need to get too worried about trying to figure out all the fancy angles. You can do a simple boat like this just by kind of doing a straight line like so. So you just do a straight line like this. And then you just take 2 lines down on an angle, like a triangle. And then like that. Head them back in. You can do that, like something like this. And then a mast up top, like that. And that's fine. And then when you paint this into your painting, that's fine. It's sitting straight. So you're looking at it from basically a two-dimensional look to it, like so. So you can do that with your boats. You don't have to get super fancy, you know. You kind of work it out and say, okay, it's kind of got to look like this. If you want to go with an maybe on an angle, maybe you start the angle like this on the boat and just go down like this. Keep it straight on the bottom. And then maybe you do a little angle like that. Something like that. Something like this. And then you'd have your mast in this more toward the, not quite the center of the boat, but a little bit toward the front. Like that. So you can kind of, you know, you kind of get a feel for it. You can do some tracing if you have to. You know, just working out some ideas on paper. So I did this one over here, and I'm going to make this the light side. Of course, we said the light's coming from here. So this side of the boat's going to be in shadow. And then I'll do a mast too. So I'm going to do a mast. I might take a small ruler and do my mast here for my fishing boat. And then you try to put your mast up a decent amount. Not too high. You wouldn't want to put a mast all the way up here. That would look kind of silly with a boat this size, right? So you kind of keep your mast of your boat proportionate to your boat. So this boat maybe has a 15 to 20 foot mast in it. And we'll do that. We'll put a little figure in the boat too as well. Maybe there's a fisherman there and he's doing some fishing. And we'll see. But this will be a fun painting, a fun boat to paint in here. We'll put some shadow. We'll put a reflection of the mast down here, and then we're going to have a reflection of the boat. Reflection of the boat's going to be to this side, so I can erase over here. I'm not going to need a reflection or a shadow on this side, but I will need a reflection over here in the water. And then, of course, this we'll need some reflections here in the water. And I just put an indication of that with some pencil line just so I know where to go when I'm using my brush. All right, so that's pretty simple. We have that done. And then we'll paint our birds in freehand. We'll just, you know, free brushing it. We won't. I'll just erase this pencil line over here. There's a couple pencil lines I see. I might just erase a few of those if I can. If that's all right, I'll just erase a few pencil lines just to get this a little bit better looking here in the foreground. And I think that's good. So let's get our paints mixed up for our sky wash. The fun thing with the sky wash is we're going to use this flat brush. And this is a 5/8 wash brush. And that comes in the pack. That when you look up Princeton Art and Brush Company and you look for the 6 brush set, this comes with the set. This is perfect for this size painting. And then I'll empty this water. It's kind of muddy. Let's get some fresh, clean water. Okay, put some fresh, clean water in there. Okay, for the sky wash, let's get some water on the paper. But the first thing we want to do, this is another tidbit of information that's really going to help us to get a better result with our sky wash not flowing down into our lower areas of our painting. So when you're going to put in some water washes and some extra water in your paper, in your sky first, before you start putting on your blue sky wash, what you're going to want to do is wet the paper. And this is a foolproof way that you'll never have a problem. All you do is you take a piece of tape, artist tape, and you put it right where the horizon line is, where the land is. There, see where the land is? So I take my tape and I cover just at the very top of the land. Like that. And then I just press down the top area of my tape. Not the whole tape, just the top. Really press it down so it's good and firm on the paper. Now what we do is we take our water, and then we can kind of paint up in our sky here, and we don't have to worry about it flowing down over this area. And even more solid way to do this is dampen the paper at the bottom right here prior to doing your sky wash. So I'm taking a damp brush and just painting along this tape edge here. See how I'm just going over that with a damp brush? Now what that's going to do is the paper is going to become damp and soaked in this area of the bottom of the sky along where this tape is. And that means when the water starts flowing down, it's going to stop here and kind of flood in and hold and stick right to this line here, and it won't go past. So it actually acts as like a little bit of a barrier from the water flowing down over the rest of the painting. Even though you have that tape on there, it could flow over. But if you add that little bit of water first, perfect. Okay, and it's a little bit of an extra step or two, but don't worry. If you do these little extra steps and things when you're painting, you're going to find it really helps a lot. So that's why I mention it. It really does give you a lot of better results if you can think of it as an extra precaution. You put your tape on there first, press it down good along the top edge of your tape. That's the first thing. Second thing is you add a little bit of that water before you start doing your sky wash to the very, very bottom over here across this whole line where the tape is, and that's just like a double amount of protection against your water kind of starting to drip and flow over here. You wouldn't want that. You want to keep your sky wash up top here. So now we're ready to go. We can take our clean, fresh water and just start throwing on some water up here. Not flooding it out too much, just get a little bit of, take your brush with some water on it and just kind of put it onto the sky wash. Not everywhere. Just, here and there. But up top, keep the whole top of the sky wash wet. So take, plenty of water up top on this top portion of your sky. Up here along the top of the tape and along this top up here, you can go right around, swing your brush around like this. If you want to be fancy about it, just swing around up here. Perfect. Then you can come down here, add a little more water, but not too much. And you just let this be like this, like that. You just kind of let it kind of flow freely over here. And then that's it. And then you're fine. There might be a little bit of dry paper here and there, which is good. Then you take this and you say, all right, let's mix up our wash, our sky wash. So I'm going to use this French ultramarine looking blue and also a little bit of this purple. So I want to make a little bit of a purplish blue, but more or less, let's keep it blue. This blue here. Then we're going to take a little bit of that brown and orange mixture. Let's gray down our, so orange. Let's stick with orange. Let's just stick with blue and orange. Maybe a touch of that, a little bit of that muddy paint there, a little bit. Maybe a little bit of that greenish mixed too with the red, and so you can gray down your wash a little bit. But it's a pretty bright looking sky, so we don't want to get too fancy with our mixing too many colors and going too dark. Let's keep it looking like the picture for the most part. So we mixed a little bit of a grayer mixture down here with some brown, orange, a little bit of red, brown, orange, red. Then and blue, plenty of blue, and then some more blue up here, straight blue up here, maybe a little bit of whatever's left over on the brush to keep that blue pretty much. Okay, so that's a pretty good sky wash right there. Okay, let's rinse the brush off one more time, maybe add a little more water. Okay, now we're going to take our and this is the fun part. Let the water do the work. Okay, it's not exactly the same as this up here, but let's try to make it a little more exciting. I mean, you don't have to copy everything you see 100%. You can change a little bit, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to maybe make it a little more interesting. Hopefully that doesn't make anybody uptight. That I'm trying to do a little bit of a more exciting looking sky to bring more excitement into the painting. Now what I do is I grab a fresh tissue and I blot up a little bit of the puddles. You'll see there's some puddles forming here. You may not be able to see it, but there is. Along the tape, I dry up a little bit along the tape. Some water did flow along the tape. Okay. Then there's some clouds up here. You can make some clouds with tissues. Take your tissues, roll them up into a ball, and then just make a couple clouds. Why not? Like that. Okay. Maybe a couple over here, clouds. You don't want to just do them on one side. That would look a little bit suspect if someone was looking at the painting and thinking you just did one thing over here and you didn't kind of match it. Let's match the techniques on this. All right, so there we got it. A little bit darker over here. Then we say to ourselves, let's put a little bit, let's make sure let's clean up a spot here. Quick. A little bit of orange. Touch of orange over here. We have to have that orange along this tape. A little bit of that along the bottom of the sky. And you can blend that up into the sky. And I'll blend this down like this. And that's really your sky. Not too much fussing, as you can see. I'm not going on and on and on trying to blend colors or keep painting. Skies are best if you just kind of get them in quick and then let them just, mix and mingle the colors and let them just kind of dry naturally, and you'll be fine. It'll look great. And you get a little bit of that tiny bit of orange along the horizon line, which is like the warmer haze along the horizon line here. Like that. And you have a little bit of time to blend a little bit, but that's about it. You don't want to keep working with the brush. You want to kind of let it go at this point. Perfect. So now's the point in time where you're going to let this dry again. You want to let this dry now. Really, really, I would say 10, 15 minutes, probably a little more than that. I would say, half an hour, or if you use a blow dryer, you can do it in 5 minutes even, and that's good enough. But I'm going to let this dry maybe. I'm going to use the blow dryer, actually. I'm going to take a quick break, use the blow dryer here, dry off the sky just a little bit so that it's not really damp or anything. It might be damp, but it's not wet. There's no puddles or there's no really, wetness to it. It's kind of maybe just damp paper, but no glossiness to the paper at all. Okay? And then when I do that, I'll lift up the tape. It'll be a safe time to lift up the tape. You don't want to lift up the tape quite yet. And then when you lift up the tape, we'll take that sky wash colors and put them down into this waterway here. The water's going to pick up the sky colors. So that's all you have to remember is you're using the same colors that you made in the sky right in the water. And then we'll do a little bit of details to the boat and a couple birds, and we're all set. Okay, we're back, and we are going to get rolling here again once again. Hey, are we having fun or what? Oh, I forgot to mention, if you haven't subscribed, right here on the right-hand side below, there's a subscribe button. Please hit that subscribe button. This will just keep you in contact with me, so the next time you open up YouTube, you'll be able to find my videos really easy. So especially if you're brand new, and if you're brand new here, thanks so much for coming by for your first time and joining us along as we're painting here. And many of you, I want to thank you if you've been following me for a while now, or even for many years. I know many of you have been with me for a long time, since I even started on YouTube, and I want to thank all of you together. Thanks so much for all your support and all the great comments and kindness and all the great words of wisdom in the comments section. I know many of you put a lot of great insights into the comments section. You explain how you do things with your watercolors. That's really helpful to artists. So if you always want to put in some information into the comment section of the my videos, please do it, because a lot of artists, they like to hear those things, those tidbits of information that you might have that work for you. A lot of people I know recently have been chiming in and really, making more of an effort of doing that. And I appreciate that, because people, that are painting here on my channel, they love the information. So if you have a lot of good insights and you've been painting a while and have things that are going to help people, certainly share it in the comment section. We love to see it and hear it. Okay, so let's get back again here. And again, the simple thing of just putting that tape on here along the horizon line is a big plus factor. And then all you do is you lift up the tape real carefully, but this is really, really good tape. You have to use, like I always mention, I use a lot of times Scotch tape, which makes the purple tape, or you use frog tape. Frog tape is easy to find. Frog tape, it's in all the big stores. out there, the big box stores, hardware stores, the home supply stores. These two are great. They're kind of soft. They won't rip your paper to pieces. I also use Pro drafting tape. I've bought a lot of rolls of Pro drafting tape over the years, and they always seem to have great tape. I get it, and I'm using that right now, Pro drafting tape. This is like probably 3/4 of an inch. And you just lift up like this, and look how perfect that comes out. Now, the only issue you have when you do put a bit of tape down is sometimes you're going to have a bit of white paper there in the distance. You could leave that there and put a watercolor, a bit of water there. You could put like some of the sky wash in there. Maybe we'll see how it looks. So I'll take my, maybe I'll use this again. So maybe we'll take some of that sky wash, which is the blue, and a little bit of orange, and we'll just touch this up a little bit. And if you use that tape, you'll notice you get some interesting effects. It almost looks like another row or another distant bit of mountains in the distance here. So you can always get a little more interesting look to your painting by adding in some I think that looks okay. Okay, now here, we're going to put some of this water wash in here. So let's take some of this blue. And I'll just take that blue and go across here. And there we have it. We wash in that beautiful blue sky wash. You could lift up a little bit of that where the boat is, maybe. We could take a touch of green. A touch of green in there. Like that. And I think that really looks good. It reflects the sky wash down into the water. And then at this point, I can lift up a little bit of paint there. So maybe I can get my boat in here. And we'll make that a little bit of this darker wash here. Like that. And then we're going to add in some of the reflection of the boat. Sometimes you can really get, you could take your tissue and make a fine point with it, like that. Like that. And then I'll do this here. I'll just do this quick. make sure that I don't. Okay, so the boat is, the dark hull of the boat is over on this side. There's a little bit of shadow over there. So I put that little bit of a darker shadow here. Probably better off waiting till the boat dries and then doing the reflection on the side of the boat. I'm trying to work at the same time. It's a little bit difficult, but that's a little bit better if you can do it that way. And then a little bit of the reflection here, like that. And it's a little bit darker along the water here, so the shadow goes across like that. There we have it. Maybe we go with a little bit of a reddish orange. That at the top of the boat. Then we can always, just for the final touches for the boat, you can use a little bit of titanium white straight out of the tube with a little bit of the orange mixed into the top of the tube, and that gives us like a really light, kind of like a light bright bit of sunlight, like that. And if it looks a little bit not the way you want, you can lift up a little bit like that. Like that. So you can always lift up a little bit of paint with your tissue. If it doesn't look the way you want it to, you can always start again, blot it up, and then let it dry, and then come back and do it a little more. But I think that looks all right. Like that. And that looks pretty good. All right, let's do a few birds. Let's do some seagulls in the sky. We'll do those with our... We have a... sometimes I get my... I use my needlepoint brush. So I dampen my needlepoint brush, and then we'll do a couple darker. For the birds, we use a darker wash. I also noticed too, don't worry about it if again something smudges. You can always go across it like that. So I just fixed up the boat, the stern of the boat. And then, what else do we have here? Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of dark paint here for our birds. We'll do some seagulls first. And I think with the seagulls, what I like to do is, let's make them small. Let's not make them too big. And we'll just start over here. Maybe we'll start up here. Maybe up here we'll do one. Like that. One there. Now we're going to make one go a little bit like it's flying on the side of here. We don't want to keep them all the same formation. One like this, like a V. Then over here we have one on an angle. Then maybe over here another one on another angle over here, like that. And then maybe another one here. Pick up a little more paint. I'm trying to make them larger up here and then smaller as they go. And then another one here, like that. Like that. That looks pretty good. And then maybe another one here. And then maybe another one here. So I kind of concentrate them around the boat area here. That looks pretty good. And then let's try to do a couple of shorebirds here. Why not? So let's do a couple of shorebirds. I have a couple carved shorebirds that I bought online on eBay. So what I'll do is I'll set this across from me on my table, and I'll just use that to sort of get the basic shape of what I'm looking for. And that should be good. So maybe I'll make a shorebird over here. And I do this really slowly, really carefully. I kind of just, that's one. Let's do a couple. Let's do another one here. Okay, one, two, one over here. And then maybe one over here too, a little smaller. All right, so we have a couple of shorebirds here. And then we can always go in and do a couple of highlights to the shorebirds if we want. We can use our needlepoint brush and then just get a little bit of highlight on there. Let's see if we can do a little highlight there. On the back here. That. Maybe the legs. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. You know, if they don't come out great, you can always lift up the white paint. Or you just, lift up a touch of the paint and it kind of diminishes the brightness of the white paint underneath them for their legs. And then actually, they wind up looking good, actually. They look like they're moving around a little bit. So, have fun with this. I hope you really enjoyed this painting. We took our time. We made sure that we kind of stuck with our game plan of getting our darks in first, and then we started doing our middle tonal values, the sand and the little bit of medium tonal values in the painting, and then we did our lighter washes with our sky and our water. And of course we did a little bit of detail work too. We did a beautiful little fishing boat here and some birds and some seagulls up here in the sky. So I think this is really a fun painting to do if you're a beginner. Perfect painting to paint along. And also, too, you can always, once you're done, if it turns out really well, by all means, take a mat, drop it on, see how it looks. Move things around. Does it look better over here? Maybe it looks better like this, centered. Or does it look better this way? So you can move things around, see what looks better. I think that looks pretty good. You can move things up like that. All right. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks again for coming by. I really appreciate it. We're having fun here. That's the main thing. Enjoy the journey of watercolor. It just starts out when you pick up those brushes and those paints at the store or online and you get them delivered. You get some paper, some water, and you just start working along with us week after week, month after month, and year after year. And you're going to get better no matter what because you're practicing all the main basic fundamentals, the same methods I cover here on my videos week after week and month after month and year after year. If you keep following those methods and techniques we use here in watercolor, you're going to be fine. You're going to really learn how to paint well. I think the biggest challenge for most people is drawing. A lot of times people always say, Chris, it's hard for me to draw, or I can't seem to get the knack for drawing. Well, that's fine. You know, you can always trace in the beginning and get a feel for drawing by actually just tracing when you're working with art and painting in watercolor. You can trace in the beginning. Just recently I did a video on acetate plastic for tracing and for, you know, getting some drawings going. By all means, do some tracing at first when you first start out, but you just do your due diligence, practice a little bit every day, maybe 5-10 minutes a day is all you need. You just draw like an apple, draw a pencil, draw whatever you like to draw. An apple, like again, a paintbrush, a glass, a cup, a mug, a tree, a window, anything you like to draw, stick figures, whatever it is. Just pick up the pencil every day a little bit and do a little bit of drawing, and you'll really find that you'll make a lot of progress by just 10 or 15 minutes every day of doing some drawing. And then maybe if you do that during the week, and then on the weekends you do your painting, you'll find you're really going to make a ton of progress. I promise you, you really will. So that seems to be the main thing. Again, people always mention to me that drawing is the tough part. So if your drawing is kind of keeping you back, don't let it. Just keep practicing 5-10 minutes a day of drawing. And then also to use your tracing techniques we talk about here. There's also people that have mentioned a lot in the comments section. There's light tables you can purchase online, small light tables that have a light bulb in them, and you can put your paper and your drawing or whatever you're going to trace from right underneath the or on top of the light table, and then you can see your subject matter underneath. Let's say it's a painting like this. You'll be able to put something over it, like a piece of paper on top of it with the light shining through, and you can see all of the drawing underneath, and you can trace over that. So again, keep practicing. You're going to get better at this no matter what you do, as long as you're just sticking with this every week and week after week, month after month, year after year. Stick with this. You're going to get better at watercolor and have a great time of it, okay? Promise you. And let's get back again together very soon, and we'll do another painting. Okay? We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.